Hi class, today we're going to get an introduction to OnShape. To get to OnShape, especially when you don't have a link to an existing document, you can go into your portal and click on the OnShape icon. If you don't have that icon, you can just type OnShape in the global search and it should come in the applications drop down. Once you get in there, you don't actually have to have a password because you can go and use the sign in with Google. And just select your email address. Okay, so it may kick you to different areas in OnShape. It might ask you to select your default units, and in this class I am going to use millimeters, so if yours says inches, go ahead and switch to millimeters. You do need to find the documents header at the top and make sure it's on that, and then you can select the create drop down and choose document. We are going to be drawing some simple square shapes, which is known as polyominoes. So I'm going to name this document my polyominoes. And then I can click the create button. Okay, so it has popped me into my drawing window. In this particular view is a parts studio. We'll get to more of that later. If I look over at my cube, and this cube does allow you to move it around if you click and drag it. But this cube is a 3D view. It's not quite isometric. But for me to start a drawing, I do have to start sketching something. So just like I did when I was drawing it on paper, I do try to find a flat surface to draw on before I extrude my shape. So in this case, I'm going to choose one of these sketch planes. And I can choose it by either hovering until there's an orange outline on that sketch plane, or I can go into what I call a features list and I can select it from there. But to actually start sketching, I'm going to come up and click Sketch from my menu. Notice that it also tells you the shortcut, Shift plus S, can also create a sketch. And then what pops up is what I call a sketch dialog. A dialog is when the computer wants me to interact with it and give me an input. So in this case, the sketch dialog is saying select a sketch plane, and it has this sketch plane box highlighted. So like I said before, I can hover over the actual planes, or I can choose it from the features list. So I want this first sketch to be on the top plane. I'm going to select it here, and then my sketch dialog shows that my selected sketch plane is the top plane. It's very tempting to now click this check mark, but you do not want to do that. If you do, then you're no longer in your sketch. Notice that the menu has changed. This is the sketch menu. If I click this check box, that menu disappears because I'm no longer sketching. I'm back in my 3D view. If I want to get back in there, I can double click on my sketch 1 and my menu changes back to the sketch menu. Okay, so before I start drawing, there's a lot of distracting things on my sketch right now. I don't really want to sketch in this isometric view, so I can switch it to be normal to my sketch plane with the shortcut N. Now I can see my sketch plane orthogonally. The next thing that's a little distracting is all these planes. I can come over to the features list and click on all these eyeballs. That's one way to hide them one at a time. But there's also a shortcut key of a P that will toggle the planes on or off. So that's what I usually do every time I start a sketch. In this case, we're going to draw something very, very simple. we are going to draw a square. There's not a tool called square. It's basically just called a rectangle. When I hover over that icon, it shows me that the shortcut for it is G. So I can either click on here or I can type G on my keyboard and it will activate that menu item. And if I click once, it starts my rectangle. I click the second time and it creates the other end of my rectangle. Do not click and drag. Okay, the other thing that you can see now is the dimension is highlighted. I do not have to click on that. It's already highlighted. I can type in 25 for the length, and then I can type in 25 for the height. Okay, so now I have a 25 by 25 square. And my last step is, I'm still in the sketch menu, but the sketch menu gives me this feature called Extrude. I could also press Shift plus E, but when I click that icon, it's going to, by default, extrude the faces of sketch 1. And just by default, it gives me a depth of 25 millimeters. If I accept that I do want a new solid of that sketch, I can click this green check mark, and this is a cube on the top view, but if I press Shift 7, I now see a cube of the bottom view. This dot right there is the origin, and if I don't want to see that, I can come over to the features list, click on the eyeball, and it'll hide that dot. When I press Shift 7 again, it recenters it because I'm no longer looking at that origin. The two things to note is there's two types of document. What we just created is what I'm calling the Parts Studio. Later on, when we put parts together, it's going to be an assembly, and that assembly is going to allow us to join or fasten our parts together, but that'll be for another day.